The mystery of the stone circles. The first stone moved at midnight. No one saw who moved it. No footprints appeared in the wet earth around it. No animal tracks crossed the grass. There were no broken branches, no marks from ropes, no scratches where the enormous stone had been dragged. It simply stood somewhere else when the villagers woke. And that was the beginning. For generations, the people of Kitala had avoided the stone circles. They were not forbidden by law. No chief had ever stood before the village and announced that anyone who entered the circles would be punished. No written warning existed. No fence surrounded them. Yet every child in Kitala learned the same rule before learning how to swim, hunt, or climb a palm tree. Never enter the stone circles after sunset. Never sleep beside them. Never count the stones aloud. And if you ever hear your name being called from inside the circles, do not answer. The old people always gave different reasons. Some said the stones belonged to the ancestors. Others said they had been placed there by people who lived before the village itself existed. A few whispered that the circles were built by spirits. But there was one story that nobody liked to tell. The story of the night when 37 men entered the circles and only 36 came back. The missing man was called Kondo. He had been a hunter, a strong man, a fearless man. And according to the few who survived that night, Kondo had not disappeared. He had walked away into the darkness. After hearing someone call his name, that story was almost 70 years old when the first stone moved. And the person who discovered it was a young woman named Amara. Amara was 24 years old and had never believed the stories. She believed in things that could be touched. Rain, hunger, money, work, death. She believed in the sharp edge of a knife and the weight of a sack of grain. She did not believe stones could remember people. She did not believe the dead could call the living. And she certainly did not believe that an arrangement of rocks could hide a secret for hundreds of years. Her father, however, had always been fascinated by them. His name was Elias. He had spent most of his life studying the old places around Kitala, collecting stories from elders, and drawing maps of abandoned paths. He had a small room filled with notebooks, broken pottery, charcoal drawings, and strange objects he had found in the forest. People sometimes laughed at him. They called him the man who listened to stones. Elias never became angry. Whenever someone mocked him, he simply smiled. One day, he would say, "You will understand that the things people fear are often the things they understand least." Amara had heard those words 100 times. She had stopped listening to them years ago. Then, 3 months before the stone moved, her father disappeared. He had gone toward the northern forest one morning. He never returned. The village searched for 6 days. They found his sandals near a dry stream. They found his walking stick beneath a fig tree. They found one of his notebooks inside a shallow cave. But they never found Elias. The chief declared him dead. The villagers held a funeral. Amara refused to believe it. She continued searching. Every morning before sunrise, she walked through the forest calling his name. Elias. Nothing answered. Until the night of the stone. Amara was awake because the rain had become violent. Thunder shook the walls of her small house. The roof leaked in 3 places. She had placed clay bowls beneath the holes and was preparing to lie down when she heard something. A sound. Not thunder. Not wind. A deep grinding noise. She froze. It came from the northern edge of the village, from the direction of the stone circles. The sound lasted perhaps 5 seconds. Then silence returned. Amara stepped outside. The rain struck her face. She looked toward the hills. At first she saw nothing. Then lightning flashed. For one brief moment, the stone circles appeared on the distant ridge, black shapes against white sky. Amara stared. She did not know why. Something inside her told her to look again. Another flash came, and she saw it. One of the stones was standing outside the circle. The following morning, she climbed the ridge. The rain had softened the earth. Mist hung between the trees. Birds screamed from the branches. When Amara reached the stone circles, she stopped. There were 36 stones. She knew that because she had counted them many times as a child. 36 stones, arranged in a perfect circle. Each stone was taller than a man. Some were wider than a doorway. Their surfaces were dark gray, covered with pale lines that looked like cracks. But now there were 37. One stone stood nearly 12 steps away from the circle. It was enormous, and fresh mud clung to its base. Amara crouched. She touched the stone. It was warm. She pulled her hand away. The morning was cold. The rain had continued all night. Every other stone was freezing. This one felt like a living body. Amara stared at it. Then she noticed something carved into its side. A symbol. A circle with a line through its center. Below it were 3 words. She recognized the language. It was an ancient form of Kitalan that her father had taught her. She read the words slowly. The door has moved. Amara's heart began pounding. She stood. And for the first time since her father disappeared, she was afraid. Not because of the stones. Because she remembered something he had said 2 weeks before he vanished. If one of the stones ever moves, Amara, don't tell anyone. At the time, she had laughed. Now she wished she had asked why. She returned home and opened her father's room. She searched through his belongings for hours. Finally, beneath a wooden box filled with old maps, she found a folded piece of cloth. Inside it was a small key, and beneath the key was a note. Amara unfolded it. Only one sentence had been written. The circle is not a grave. It is a lock. She read it twice. Then a third time. Her father had left the note before he disappeared. But why? What had he discovered? And what exactly was locked? That afternoon, Amara went to see the oldest person in Kitala. Mama Sefa was 93. Her eyesight was weak, but her memory was frighteningly sharp. She lived alone beneath a huge mango tree. When Amara showed her the key, Mama Sefa stopped breathing for a moment. Where did you get that? My father's room. Mama Sefa stared at the key. Then she looked toward the hills. The circle has opened. Amara swallowed. You know what it is? Mama Sefa shook her head. No. Then why are you afraid? Because my grandmother knew. About the stones? About what is beneath them? Amara stepped closer. What is beneath them? Mama Sefa looked at her. Not what? Then what? Who? A cold feeling passed through Amara. Who is beneath the stones? Mama Sefa's voice dropped. The first people. Amara frowned. What first people? The people who came before Kitala. You mean our ancestors? No. Mama Sefa looked toward the mountains. Before them. She paused. They built the circles to keep something from coming back. Amara waited. What? Mama Sefa did not answer. Instead, she asked, did the stone move by itself? I don't know. Did you hear anything? Only thunder. Mama Sefa shook her head. Listen carefully, child. The stones do not move when something enters. Amara's stomach tightened. They move when something leaves. That night, Amara did not sleep. She returned to the stone circles with a lantern. The moon was hidden behind clouds. The ridge was silent. She approached the circle. 36 stones stood around her. The moved stone remained outside. Amara held the lantern higher. The symbol on the stone seemed different. The line through the circle now looked like a crack. She walked around it. Then she heard something. A whisper. Amara. She stopped. Her heart slammed against her ribs. The voice had come from inside the circle. Amara. It sounded like her father. She closed her eyes. No. Amara. She stepped backward. Her father's voice came again. Don't answer me. Amara's eyes opened. She looked into the circle. Nothing. Only darkness. Then the voice whispered. Because I am not your father. The lantern went out. Amara ran. She did not stop until she reached the village. She locked her door. She pushed a table against it. Then she sat on the floor, shaking. For the first time in her life, she wondered if the old stories were true. At sunrise, she went to the chief. Chief Obesai was a broad-shouldered man with silver hair and a scar across his cheek. He listened without interrupting. When she finished, he asked one question. Did you answer? No. Good. He looked relieved. Amara placed the key on his table. My father knew about the circles. The chief stared at it. I know. Amara's eyes widened. You knew? Your father came to me 6 months ago. What did he say? He said the stones were changing. Why didn't you tell me? Because he made me promise. He disappeared. I know. Then why did you keep silent? The chief looked older suddenly. Because I was afraid he had found the door. What door? Chief Obesai stood and walked to the window. Every 40 years, the circles change. How? The number of stones remains the same, but their positions shift. Amara remembered the moved stone. Why? Because something beneath the hill wakes. Something? The chief turned. Your father believed it was a chamber. And you? I believe there are some doors that were built for a reason. Amara picked up the key. Then I'm going back. The chief shook his head. No. My father may be alive. No. You don't know that. I know more than you think. Then tell me. The chief's silence lasted so long that Amara thought he would refuse. Instead, he walked to an old cabinet. He unlocked it. Inside was a bundle of papers. He removed one. It was a map. The map showed the stone circles, but beneath them was another drawing. A tunnel. It descended beneath the hill. At its end was a large chamber, and inside the chamber was a symbol. The same symbol carved into the moved stone. The first people called it the sleeping house, Chief Obesai said. What was inside? We don't know. Someone went there? 37 men. Amara stared. Kondo. The chief nodded. The same night, he disappeared. What happened? They entered through a crack beneath the central stone. And 36 returned. Kondo returned later. Amara frowned. Then why did everyone say he disappeared? Because the man who returned was not Kondo. The room seemed to become colder. What do you mean? He knew everything Kondo knew. He spoke like Kondo. He had Kondo's face. The chief leaned closer. But his shadow was wrong. Amara said nothing. His shadow moved in the opposite direction. The story sounded impossible. But she remembered the voice in the circle. She remembered how it had said, I am not your father. Chief Obesai folded the map. Your father went looking for the chamber. And you let him? He wouldn't have stopped. Why didn't you go with him? Because I had already been there. Amara stared. When? 40 years ago. The chief looked at the scar across his cheek. I was one of the 37. Amara's breath caught. You were there? Yes. What happened? The chief sat down. We opened the door. He looked toward the hills. And something opened its eyes. The next morning, Amara gathered 3 people. Jonah, her father's former assistant. Musa, a hunter who knew every trail in the northern forest. And Lela, a young schoolteacher who had studied the ancient inscriptions. Chief Obesai refused to accompany them. But he gave Amara the map. Do not move the central stone, he warned. What if my father is behind it? Then find another way. They left before sunrise. The path to the stone circles climbed through thick forest. By midday, they reached the ridge. The circle looked different. Amara noticed it immediately. The stones seemed closer together. Lela measured the distance. They moved. Musa looked around nervously. All of them. Not much. Jonah stared at the ground. Look. There were footprints. Human footprints. They began at the center of the circle. They crossed the grass and ended beside the moved stone. No footprints led toward the circle, only away. Musa whispered. Someone came out. Amara followed the footprints. They stopped at the stone. She touched it. The same warmth. Lela found another inscription. Read it, Amara said. Lela translated. The first door opens when the 37th returns. Jonah looked at Amara. What does that mean? She didn't answer. Because she had just realized something. 36 stones. 1 stone outside. 37. The number was not accidental. The circles had been waiting for 37. And perhaps her father's disappearance had nothing to do with death. Perhaps he had become the 37th. They searched around the circle. Near the center, Musa discovered a shallow depression. They cleared the grass. A stone slab appeared. It had a narrow opening. The key fit. Amara turned it. The slab moved. A deep sound rolled beneath their feet. The earth trembled. Then the central ground cracked. A staircase appeared. Stone steps descended into darkness. Jonah stepped back. We should go. Amara lifted the lantern. My father is down there. Musa shook his head. Or something wearing his face. They descended. The tunnel was narrow. The walls were covered with paintings. Human figures. Animals. Circles. And strange tall beings with elongated heads. Lela studied the paintings. These aren't gods. What are they? I don't know. Farther down, they found writing. Thousands of symbols. Some were carved deeply. Others looked as if they had been scratched in panic. Then they found names. Hundreds of names. People who had disappeared over generations. Amara recognized one. Kondo. Below it was another. Elias. Her father's name. Amara stopped breathing. He came here. Jonah touched the wall. How recently? Very recently. They continued. The tunnel opened into a massive chamber. At its center stood a stone door. It was circular. Exactly like the stone circles above. But this door was covered with handprints. Hundreds of them. Some were tiny. Some enormous. And one was fresh. Amara recognized the fingers. Her father's hand. She stepped toward it. Father. Jonah grabbed her arm. Don't. A voice came from the darkness. Amara. She froze. It was Elias. Her father. The voice was exactly right. Amara, please. She began crying. Father. The voice answered. Yes. Lela whispered, don't respond. Amara stared into the darkness. Her father's voice came again. I knew you would come. Amara took one step forward. Then she noticed something. The voice was coming from behind the stone door. Her father was trapped. Or something wanted her to believe he was. Tell me something only my father would know. Silence. Then, the blue dress your mother wore on the day you were born. Amara's heart broke. It was correct. Nobody else should know. She moved toward the door. What was it? The voice answered. Blue with white flowers. Amara reached for the stone. Lela screamed. Wait. She pointed to the floor. There was a shadow beneath the door. It did not match the shape of a person. It had too many limbs. The voice changed. Not gradually. Instantly. The warmth disappeared. The sound became deeper. Older. Open. Amara stepped back. He looked at Amara. It has been living inside my memories for 70 years. Amara whispered. Then why didn't it kill you? Because it needed me. For what? Kondo looked at the stone. To remember the way out. The ground shook again. Kondo lifted the stone. It was enormous. Musa stepped forward. I'll help. No. Kondo shook his head. If you touch it, it will hear your thoughts. He began dragging it. Amara watched. The forest seemed to darken. Whispers, her mother's voice. Her father's voice. Jonah's voice. Even her own voice. Amara. She closed her ears. Don't listen. Kondo struggled. The stone moved. 1 meter. 2. Then a scream came from behind them. Lela fell. Her eyes had become glassy. She whispered. My brother is calling me. Amara grabbed her. Don't answer. Lela shook violently. He died when I was 10. He isn't here. But I can hear him. Amara slapped her gently. Lela, look at me. Lela looked. The strange expression faded. Kondo shouted. Keep moving. They dragged the stone toward the ridge. Behind them, the forest began moving. Not trees. Shadows. Hundreds of them. People-shaped shadows. They followed silently. When they reached the circle, the stones were almost completely rearranged. Only one gap remained. The missing stone belonged there. Kondo pushed. Musa joined him. Elias joined. Amara pushed too. The stone moved into the gap. The moment it touched the others, every sound disappeared. The forest became silent. The earth stopped shaking. The shadows vanished. For a few seconds, nobody moved. Then Chief Obesai whispered, "Is it over?" Kondo looked at the circle. No. The central stone cracked. A thin line appeared. Blue light emerged. Kondo stepped back. It knows the circle is complete. What does that mean? Amara asked. It means it cannot escape. Then we're safe. Kondo looked at her. No. Why? Because now it knows exactly who to call. The central stone exploded. A wave of darkness rushed outward. Everyone fell. Amara hit the ground. When she opened her eyes, the stone circles were empty. The stones were gone. Every single one. The ridge had become a field of bare earth. Chief Obesai was unconscious. Musa was missing. Lela was crying. Jonah was nowhere. And Elias stood beside the ruined center. He looked toward Amara. But his expression was strange. "Father." He smiled. Amara froze. "Where is Kondo?" Elias did not answer. "Where is Musa?" "Nothing." "Where is Jonah?" The man stepped closer. "Amara." She backed away. "Who are you?" He smiled. Then another voice answered from behind her. "Don't ask him." Amara turned. Kondo stood there. But he was smiling. His eyes were wrong. She looked back at Elias. Then at Kondo. Both men smiled. The realization struck her like lightning. There had never been one creature. There had been many. Every person who entered the chamber could become a doorway. Every imitation carried a piece of the creature. And the stone circles had not been protecting the village from one monster. They had been protecting the world from an entire species. Amara ran. She ran down the hill. Behind her, voices called her name. Her father's. Her mother's. Musa's. Jonah's. Lela's. Kondo's. All of them. She refused to answer. She reached the village. People were standing in the streets. Silent. Every face looked familiar. Every face smiled. Amara stopped. She understood. The creature had not escaped into the forest. It had escaped into the people. The village had already been infected. Chief Obesai appeared behind her. Or something wearing his face. "You finally understand," it said. Amara looked at the village. "What do you want?" The chief smiled. "We don't want anything." "Then why are you here?" "We were always here." Amara shook her head. "No. Your ancestors knew us. You're lying. They called us the Dream People." The creature stepped closer. "They thought they could imprison us forever. Can you leave?" "We already have." "Then why haven't you attacked?" The creature smiled. "Because we don't need to." It pointed toward the village. "Look." Amara looked. Children were playing. Women were carrying baskets. Men were returning from the fields. People laughed. Everything looked normal. But then Amara noticed something. Nobody cast a shadow. She stepped backward. The creature whispered, "Tomorrow, you will return to your house." "No." "You will cook breakfast." "No." "You will speak to your neighbors." "No." "You will sleep." Amara shook her head. "And when you dream?" The creature smiled. "We will be waiting." Amara ran toward the forest. She didn't know where she was going. She only knew she could not stay. Behind her, the entire village began calling her name. She climbed the northern ridge. The stone circles were gone. But something else stood there. A single stone. Small. New. It had not been there before. Amara approached. There was an inscription. She wiped away the dust. It read, "The circle was never the prison." She turned the stone. On the other side were 4 more words. "You are the circle." Amara stared. Then she understood. The first people had not defeated the dream people. They had discovered something else. The creatures could not cross a circle, but a human mind could become a circle, a complete memory, a closed thought, a place the creature could not enter. The ancient people had passed the secret from generation to generation, not through books, not through temples, through stories. Every warning, every superstition, every tale about answering voices, every rule about the stones, all of it had been a memory trap. The village had survived because people remembered the rules, but modern generations had forgotten, and Elias had discovered the truth too late. Amara sat beside the stone. She thought about her father. She thought about Kondo. She thought about the 37 men. She thought about the thousands of names carved beneath the earth. Then she remembered something her father had said when she was a child. Things people fear are often the things they understand least. She finally understood what he meant. Fear was not the enemy. Forgetting was. The next morning, Amara returned to Kitala. The village looked normal. The people greeted her. Children laughed. Women cooked. Men worked. But Amara saw the truth. None of them had shadows. She walked to the center of the village. Everyone gathered. The chief smiled. "Welcome home." Amara smiled back. Then she began telling a story, not about monsters, not about spirits, not about the stone circles. She told them about a village that once forgot. She told them about 37 stones. She told them about a door beneath a hill. She told them never to answer a voice from darkness. As she spoke, something strange happened. A shadow appeared beneath one child. Then another. Then another. People began looking at the ground. The creatures screamed. The village shook. The false faces disappeared. For the first time, the dream people seemed afraid. Amara kept speaking. She repeated every rule, every warning, every name, every memory. The creatures began collapsing. One by one, the shadows returned. The stone circles reappeared on the hill. 37 stones. Perfectly arranged. The village was saved. But Amara knew it was not over. Because one stone remained outside the circle. The same stone that had moved on the night the mystery began. She climbed a ridge alone. The stone was warm. On it was a new inscription. She touched it. The words appeared beneath her fingers. One remains. Amara looked toward the forest. A figure stood between the trees. Her father. Real this time. Or so she hoped. He lifted his hand. Amara did not move. He smiled. Amara. She closed her eyes. The voice sounded exactly like him. But she remembered the rule. Never answer. The figure waited. Then it disappeared. Amara opened her eyes. The forest was empty. She looked at the circle. 37 stones. No missing stone. No open door. She smiled. Perhaps the mystery was finally over. Then she heard a whisper behind her. Amara. She froze. It was her own voice. She turned. Nobody was there. The stone beside her was warm, and beneath the moonlight, a thin crack appeared across its surface. Amara stared. The crack widened. Something moved inside. A human eye opened. And the last words carved into the stone appeared slowly. The story has only just begun. Far below the hill, beneath layers of ancient earth, another stone moved. Then another. Then another. Across the darkness, hundreds of forgotten circles began to tremble. In places where no village remained. In forests where no human had walked for centuries. Under abandoned temples. Beneath dry rivers. Inside mountains. Across lands whose people had forgotten the old stories. The stones began moving. One by one. And from beneath them came the same whisper, the same ancient voice, calling names, waiting for someone to answer. Because the stone circles had never been ordinary monuments. They were warnings. They were locks. They were memories carved into the earth. And as long as people remembered the truth, the doors would remain closed. But the moment the final story was forgotten, the stones would move again,